piece, I'd like one of these.
As I said, if I have one, I will get one.
Thanks. Well, if not, someone. Yeah, he's got one. Okay, great. She's got one. Thank you. I am curious about this mention of legislation. I mean, what is it that? Why do we need legislation for workforce? I just maybe am curious on what kind of legislation do we need for, as it goes for legislation. Maybe give a.
Why does it have to go?
I mean, why do we need legislation for workforce?
That's a good question on that.
The main reason is funding.
Funding, yes.
Workforce development funds at both the state and the federal level are tied to workforce clusters.
Okay.
So if you wanted to get funding to develop workforce, it's much, much easier and it makes a lot more sense. Both the state and the feds use those clusters as a way to organize and distribute workforce dollars. So it makes it easier to develop an energy workforce if you've got that cluster. That's the biggest reason.
So basically, legislation, we're talking about local legislation, though, Virginia legislation.
Yeah, there's only a handful of states, if you actually look at the document, I'll tell you, there's only a handful of states that actually put an energy cluster together. So it's not, when the federal government, and Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, because you've been in this a lot longer than I have, established these clusters, they only developed 16, and the states adopted 16.
Right.
There's only been a handful of states that have gone further and adopted a 17th cluster to deal with energy jobs.
Okay, but this legislation would be specifically for nuclear energy or all energy?
No, all energy. This is for all energy. This is for anybody that's interested in working in the energy field, between solar, wind, and which they have signed on to support it, nuclear, oil and gas. So a student, if they were interested in getting, if they wanted to go into nuclear, it'd be great. If they wanted to see how they could do more in the solar industry, what they need to do, they can do that as well. They can find a path.
So this funding that basically the legislation would be asking for would go into some big pile? I mean, some...
Legislation doesn't ask for funding.
It doesn't ask for funding.
All it does is it creates this cluster.
Okay, so what...
It creates an organizational structure that allows people like the community colleges or high schools or, under the Perkins grant, when they start to develop their budgets for programs, it's tied to those clusters. So the legislation does not ask, it's not a budget document.
No, I'm not
It just simply recognizes the broad field of energy as a standalone cluster, which makes it easier for either high schools under Perkins or community college under Perkins or their own programs to then build budgets around those programs and build programs that have funding that map to it. But it's not a budget document.
No, usually it's legislation. I still don't understand why we need legislation to do that, but I mean, I guess it's some sort of...
It just helps with the state to make the change in their support to do it. So it helps the administration to make that happen.
Oh, okay. Okay. I am curious too, I heard it was mentioned that we have a new nuclear energy secretary, I think?
She's been nominated, yeah.
Oh, she's been nominated, but she...
And she's been approved by the Senate Energy Committee this week and the full Senate.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
can't predict when they're going to vote on anybody.
who is it? I'm curious.
Her name's Rita Baranwal.
Okay.
And it'd be deputy, not...
Deputy, yeah.
Or yeah, I think her official title is Assistant Secretary. of the Office of
Assistant
Nuclear Energy.
Secretary, okay. Rita. What's her last name?
Baranwal.
Okay. And, okay. And let's see, was there something else? Of course, I usually like to update as it goes for recent earthquakes. Of course, we've had 2 more. November 9th, we had a 2.5 and a 2.4 in Goochland, which is just right down the road from, not too far from North Anna. As a footnote, I think it'd be really great for the public to have, when we're looking at this, which of course I've actually seen an article talking about the subsequent licensing for Surrey, because obviously Dominion had already gone that for Dominion. So it's all in the pipeline as other states are also doing the same thing for their reactors. But it'd almost be nice to have like a Carfax, where when we're going to go forward with these relicenses, have an inventory structure where, okay, so, the pressurizers, so many were replaced in X. So we know that we have so many more years. How much is the cost? I mean, I really think that would give us a general idea of when we're doing these relicenses, is it worth the cost? So we can get the relicensing. It's always so far in advance because we're like only a few years in to the first licensing renewal. So we're doing this way in advance. So, what needs to be replaced? I mean, these parts and pieces are very expensive, so I'm not sure cost factor. Maybe it's just because we want to get it in place and it's there. I don't even think the NRC has a complete understanding what we need for a subsequent license renewal yet. I mean, has anyone gotten this extra 20 yet?
No, so the survey
I don't think anyone has
The survey
yet.
application is the third one they've received, and so those are in process, but they
Right.
haven't actually
They all
approved
went
one
through
yet.
from 4.
Right, they haven't approved it because last time I heard they hadn't.
Detected that a minimum number of lines are connected to this conference. Do you want to continue your meeting? Press 1 to confirm. If there is no response, the conference will end.
Guess no one was on there. So no one has gotten this renewal yet, but I know it takes a long time to go through these processes. But like I said, as a Virginian, I mean, I'm just curious, as we continue to support these nuclear power plants, what is the status? What have we replaced? What have we haven't replaced? What are we going to look like we have to replace? And then the bottom line still comes down to, I mean, hopefully the NRC will have some sort of structure to make sure that the pressure reactor vessel itself is something that can actually go through, because from everything I've read, I mean, this embrittlement issue is a major issue, and you can't go and replace a pressure reactor vessel. I mean, economically, radioactivity, etc., it would be a no deal. So I don't know, how much, because last year's General Assembly, Dominion pretty much was coming forward saying, oh yeah, it's going to cost, I forgot how many billions to modernize or update North Anna or Surrey. Maybe it was just North Anna, I don't remember. But we didn't get a list of, okay, well, what exactly are you talking about replacing? What else needs to be replaced? I mean, this could be an every year thing where citizens and ratepayers are being poked in the eyeballs for billions of dollars, only to end up in the end, with an embrittled reactor, and we've dumped billions of dollars into these plants, which then become a huge safety issue. So, I mean, it'd be nice if we would see some sort of, like I said, like a Carfax, what these plants have to offer, what needs to be replaced, how much more money needs to be dumped in to make them safer. Otherwise, we're kept in the dark. We're just told, oh, nuclear energy is good, and, keep them running, get that new license to keep them running. Because, they might look fine today, but like I said, we're just entered into that second renewal, and that's like 18 or 17 more years. Then this next 20 years starts. I don't know how we're going to predict that the reactor vessel or the parts in there are going to be good for the next 30 years, when we go into this next license renewal. I think that's way ahead of itself. So I'm kind of not very happy with that. I did want to say that 60 Minutes did a pretty good program Sunday on an update on Fukushima. And I can't remember the guy's name, but they had him as the lead expert on nuclear energy, and he was behind, I guess, the 3 Mile Island cleanup. And when the reporter asked him, I know we're going to be decades into cleaning up Fukushima, 10, 20, 30. He goes, oh, 40, 50. I mean, we'll all be dead, and they'll still be trying to get, the nuclear fuel, molten reactor fuel out of there, because, which doesn't take a nuclear engineer or anyone really intelligent to ask, why don't we just put a sarcophagus? You can't do that at the water's edge. So they're actually looking to build more and more robots, millions and millions of dollars, virtual realities on how to the engineers to get the things in there. They spent millions of dollars on one of the robots that got 10 feet before it got stuck. So an accident proves, number one, that this is not going away, that there's going to be millions and billions of dollars placed in an effort to actually retrieve the fuel. How they'll be able to do it, when, I don't know. We'll all be dead and gone. So our children and grandchildren will be dealing with this problem. So maybe, you know, the Nuclear Energy Authority Consortium businesses, I mean, obviously in Virginia, maybe get on the bandwagon for robots and how we can, you know, utilize them. Because if it's not Fukushima, it's gonna be somewhere else in the United States or somewhere else in the world that this pressure reactor vessel, we've pushed them to the limit and we're gonna have another accident. I just think that's what's gonna happen. So technology moves forward. But like I said, the 60 Minutes you can watch online. I was happy to see that they talked about it at least. Because most Americans act like, you know, it's gone. It's over. It's not over. Radiation levels are still very high in areas. People obviously have been displaced. And I can guarantee you, as the years roll by, more and more health effects are going to be seen. And so I was happy at least something came out, so that there's been almost no news about what's going on there. And it does show I forgot how many Olympic-sized swimming pools. It was insane, the number of garbage bags, these huge garbage bags, as they go around scraping up soil and putting them in there. Like I said, the cost of nuclear, if you want to exclude accidents, you know, which you can't. If there's an accident, it's going to be very expensive. And so nuclear energy still remains expensive, dangerous. In an accident or in the front of it, of the mining and all that other stuff, is very dirty. And then the nuclear radioactive spent fuel is, I mean, there's no cost. How can you put a cost on it? This is something that's going to have to be managed forever. So no, nuclear energy is not cost effective. So yeah, I'm hoping that as we move forward, that Virginia, if we want to be a leader in nuclear energy, we've got to lead, I think, with you know, better canisters and you know, education-wise. I don't know how many people are going to volunteer their children, or people are going to volunteer and clean up. I know in one of the two fuel facilities yesterday, the NRC reports were one in South Carolina and one in North Carolina. You know, there were leaks at the fuel facilities and contamination. One or two individuals were contaminated in South Carolina. I don't know that. I don't know how many people or anyone in here would volunteer their children or want to go work and be cleanup actors. I don't think so. So it's kind of disturbing. So yeah, I guess basically, you know, you'll keep having your meetings, and you know, I'm not really sure, you know, what the hopefulness is of being the leaders in nuclear energy here is. Is it you know, just to keep North Anna and Surrey running, just to develop a workforce? We don't know. I mean, I see these reports to the General Assembly every year. They really don't change, and I don't really see what has been done in Virginia to make nuclear energy safer. I don't see anything that's new. And I've been coming here ever since this group was developed. And so it'd be nice to see some real positive factor come out of here to show that somehow our facilities here are safer. Oh, and that was the other thing I was going to mention. As it goes for inventory and the renewal licenses, what should be stated is how much spent nuclear fuel waste we have on site now And what's it gonna look like when we get this license renewal? You know, supposedly this nuclear waste is gonna stay, and that's only high level. But then you look at the low level waste from the filters and all the other stuff we're creating, holy smokes, that makes the number of the high level waste look really small. So I'm concerned, you know, we're creating a lot of waste that, like the high level waste, it's, you know, that's gonna be with the next 3,000 generations. And I almost feel like we don't have a conscience here. If we're going to continue to create something that we have no freaking idea what to do with. Just look at Fukushima. And that is the outcome of what you have to deal with right now if there's an accident here. And I don't want to see that happen here or anywhere else. Like I said, I haven't seen anything good happen here during these meetings. No progress. Reports look the same. There's been name changes, you know, when they start changing names when they want to, you know, BMX, or, you know, when they want to change, or Babcock and Wilcox, and they want to get out of one thing or another. But, you know, something's got to give here. Please make us safer here in Virginia. And make our reactors, make sure that if we're going to run them for another 20 years, and we're already looking in the future, 30 years down the road. I mean, it's like, make us safer and prove what we've got is worth to continue to invest in. That's all I have to say. Thank you.